Members, good morning. We have formed a quorum. The first thing to do is to elect a chairman for the Bills Committee. Any nominations, please? Speakers off mic. I nominate Mr. Alan Leung. Mr. Kenneth Leung? No, Alan Leung. Alan Leung doesn't accept. May I make any nominations? I nominate Mr. Kenneth Leung. I accept. Any seconder, please? All right. Any other nominations, please? No. Then Mr. Kenneth Leung elected. Members, do we need deputy chairman for the BC? I don't think that's necessary. Okay, let's start our business and invite the administration to join us, please. Thank you. Good morning. Present for this meeting, we have Ms. Mabel Chan, Deputy Secretary for Financial Services and the Treasury, PAS from the same bureau, Ms. Fiona Chung, Mr. Chiu Kwok-kit, Deputy Commissioner of Inland Revenue, Ms. Francoise Lam, Senior Assistant Law Draftsman from DOJ, and also Ms. Judy Yip, Senior Assessor from IRD. The bill in question is Inland Revenue Amendment Number 2, Bill 2013. Any introduction from the administration, please? Thank you. Good morning, Chairman and members of the BC. I have prepared a brief speaking note, and it will be circulated to members for your information. I will just highlight the important points. We've issued a logical brief on the bill for members' information, and this is this is an Inland Revenue Amendment Number 2, Bill 2013, which amends the IRO so as to give effect the revenue concessionary measures proposed in the 2013-14 budget and to provide for some of the transitional matters. The concessionary revenue measures are as follows. First, to alleviate the burden of parenthood, the FS proposes to increase both the child allowance and the additional one-off child allowance in the year of birth for each eligible child from 63,000 currently to 70,000 under series tax and tax under personal assessment with effect from the year of assessment 2013-14. And the FS sets a lot of store by personal enhancement and training of talents. So the bill also proposes to, starting from the year of assessment 2013-14, enhance the deduction ceiling for expenses of self-education from $60,000 to $80,000 under series tax. These two proposals will benefit about 310,000 taxpayers, and that would also mean $420 million in revenue foregone for the government. And in order to alleviate the public's burden in the light of uncertain external environment and the risk of high inflation. We've also proposed to reduce series tax under personal and tax under personal assessment and profits tax for the year of assessment 2012-13 by 70%, subject to a ceiling of $100,000 per case, and the reduction will be reflected in the tax bill for 2012-2013. We believe about 1.53 million taxpayers will benefit from the proposed one-off reduction of series tax, and the proposed one-off reduction of profits tax will benefit about 119,000 taxpaying companies. And that would also mean about $9 billion in revenue forgone on the part of the government. We appeal to members to support the bill for its passage within this year, so that the IRD can send out the tax bills in time, so that the concessionary measures can be reflected in the tax bills. And we will work hard to support the work of the Bills Committee so that the scrutiny of the bill can be done very efficiently and expeditiously. Thank you, Deputy Secretary. Members, do you have any questions on the policies involved, please? Questions are welcome. DS. While members are going through the paper, I'd like to ask a question of principle. I understand that the child allowance will be increased from 63,000 to 70,000, and the deduction ceiling for expenses of self-education will be increased from $60,000 to $80,000. I'd like to know the basis for working out the rate of increase. Do you take into account inflation, or will you say that because it has been adjusted for a few years, why don't we do it this year? I know that for many professional organizations or bodies will make suggestions to the FS before he drafts his budget, and usually the proposals just rather arbitrary. So I'd like to know what is the basis or criteria for setting the adjustment in allowances. Thank you. The FS meets with different stakeholders every year for tax proposals. We meet with professional bodies in particular, and after that we will consider the views received.
Yes, so well, under the Inland Revenue Ordinance in 2008-09, we have conducted a comprehensive review, including various types of allowances and deductions. A comprehensive review has been made, and the two proposals today on the child allowance in the past 2 financial years, actually we have made increases. And for the increase this time from $63,000 to $70,000, we have taken account of the fact of past increases. In 2011-12, the allowance was increased to $60,000, and 12-13, and that was further increased to $63,000. The amount of increase last year is just 5%, relatively lower. In view of the fact that there is inflation and then there is worsening economy. So the FS wants to alleviate parents' burden on providing for the child. So the increase this year is relatively higher, is 11.1% to $70,000. Now, as for expenses of self-education, we seldom make increases on that item. The most recent increase was made in 2007-08, and that increase was from $40,000 to $60,000, because you want to encourage more people to undertake self-education, and The increase this time is 33.3%, from $60,000 to $80,000. Thank you, Chairman. Thank you very much, Deputy Secretary. Members, any questions? Well, I'll give you another 30 seconds. Chairman. What is the definition of child? Do we have to look at the birth certificate? If a child is an adopted child or a stepson or stepdaughter, are they eligible? All right. Is the taxpayer's child born to the parent? Children also covered adopted children, and then we have to look at some court documents to determine that. And what about stepmom and stepdad? Yes, the children of these people are also covered. But if their children are born to a certain parent and they don't live in Hong Kong, what about that? Now, under the law, there is no requirement that the children must live in Hong Kong. Okay, I have a follow-up question. Now, if for a dependent parent allowance, is it true that the parent has to live in Hong Kong, whereas for the child, he or she doesn't have to live in Hong Kong? Is there a discrepancy there? I think it's a matter of policy. And for dependent parent allowance, the policy objective is that we want to encourage the children to live together with their parents in Hong Kong. So that's why we have this requirement that the dependent parent allowance is only given to parents who live in Hong Kong. Now, a parent might have different children, and under the ordinance, only one child is entitled to claim the dependent parent allowance. Can't you relax that to allow different children to claim the same dependent parent allowance? Well, actually, this view has been raised by many people before, and we are looking at the law every year. As what Ms. Kwok said, we have studied that the possibility of sharing out the allowance among the children, I mean the dependent parent allowance. And in that case, the children have to have a consensus among themselves. But then there may be the case that the children may have differing views. And then that will create uncertainties in tax returns and tax assessment. And we are afraid that the ILD will get entangled in the conflicts of the children. So the present arrangement is that the dependent parent allowance can only be claimed by one child, and we want to leave it to the children to decide among themselves who is to make that claim. Well, in that case, and actually the one child can make the claim, and then the child can share out the allowance among themselves privately. I want to ask about the self-education expenses. Well, a person may take on a course for several years, and the tuition fee paid for that year is the expenses is counted as the expenses for that year. Is that right? Yes, it's calculated on a yearly basis. And the expenses includes the study, the tuition fees, as well as the examination fees, and it's on a cost or fee reimbursement basis. Thank you, Chairman. Mr. Alan Lau. Chairman. I think Ms. Chan, Deputy Secretary, has answered in a rather general way to our question. Can we put on record my point here? The government decides on various allowances and deductions every year. And we really don't know how the government sets its priorities. Say in the budget this year, there has not been any clear explanation on the priorities. We're talking about allowances this time, and there have been a lot of discussions in the community and among political parties about the tax rates. Can we think about doing something about profits tax? We talked a lot about deep-seated conflicts, and a minority in the community controls the majority of resources in the community, and through the system we are actually allowing them to get even more powerful. Now the CE has just assumed office last year, and what is he going to do about these deep-seated conflicts? Can we resolve these conflicts through a reformed tax system to make it fairer for everyone? Well, I don't want to dwell on this matter in this BC, but I just want to put it on record that the administration should redeploy resources to address the problem of unfair or uneven distribution of income in the society. I think that's the aspiration of the community. Well, I don't have a specific question. It's just an expression of opinion. Now, you said that. Well, can you respond on whether that you would be trying to reallocate community resources through the tax system? Yes, we heard Mr. Lang's views. Maybe this is not an appropriate occasion for us to deliberate the matter, but I can tell you that in 2008-09, we have, based on different people's views, that we have looked at the tax rates for salary tax and profits tax, and we actually look at the tax rates every year, and we did some adjustment on the tax rates in 2008-09, and then last year we made increases in the allowances. Now this year, FS has taken into a basket of factors in coming up with the budget, including the internal environment and the external environment, whether there are any uncertainties. And actually, Hong Kong's tax system is very simple, and the tax base is relatively narrow. And if we want to undertake a comprehensive review, we have to look at whether we should broaden the tax base and whether we should introduce a more progressive tax rate system. And at the same time, we have heard views that there should be more tax deductions or allowances. So these are the two sets of opposing factors. Will it further narrow our tax base? And this is something that we should look at. Now, Chairman, you mentioned whether that we should redistribute wealth or income through the tax system. And actually, our tax base is rather narrow, and we are very vulnerable in view of the external economic environment and so on. So we have to put emphasis on making the system stable. And we would be thinking of whether to use the tax system to introduce more fairness in this society, but whether we should actually reallocate income distribution through the tax system, then we need more discussions on that. Now, actually, we have made big initiatives or launched big initiatives such as on introducing stamp duty and then tax interchange and so on.
Any follow-up, Mr. Leung? Just one more sentence. I think the DS has already pointed out the crux of the matter with wide community support. And how can we do that? How can we measure that there is support from the community, of course, by means of universal suffrage? Any response? Any other questions? If members have no strong views on the policy aspect of the bill, we will go into the clause-by-clause scrutiny. Which one from the administration is going to lead us in the clause-by-clause scrutiny? IRD. Mr. Chiu, thank you. The purpose of the bill is to give effect to the concessionary revenue measures proposed in the FS budget. The first clause sets out the short title, and then clause 2 sets out that the amendments is set out in sections 3 to 4. Clause 3, at the end of section 89, there will be a transitional provision added. And that is to add Schedule 28. We will come to that later. Clause 4. After Section 94, there will be Section 95 added. And what is Section 95? It makes mention of Schedule 29, and that is the one-off reduction of series tax, profits tax, and tax at the personal assessment for the year of assessment commencing for year of assessment 2013-14. Hang on, Mr. Chiu. Please pause for a while. Our legal advisor has something to say. Chairman, regarding Clause 3, there is a purely technical point for members' information. Please refer to our marked up version. Paper CB1 1063/1213(1). Page 1. Relates to Clause 3. On the left-hand side, we have the original IRO, and right-hand side, the amendments. So there is amendment there is new subsection 11 to be added to this clause. I understand that LegCo is vetting a bill on alternative bonds, Islamic bonds, that is, and there will be a clause 10, subclause 10 added. So it depends on which bill gets passed first. There may be some rejuggling of the numbering. So for Schedules 28 and 29, the regional ordinance has only got Schedule 26. Schedule 28, page 8. Now we won't be able to see the original schedules, but I understand that there's a similar issue. The current ordinance ends at Schedule 26 because another related bill is going to add Schedule 27. So depending on which bill gets passed first, there may be some rejuggling of the numbering of the schedules. Yes, please go on, Mr. Chiu. Clause 5 of the bill. Schedule 3A amended. Deduction for expenses of self-education will be increased from $60,000 to $80,000 starting from 2013-14. And Clause 6 is about Schedule 4. The heading will be amended, and the original subheading is repealed and substituted by for the year of assessment 2012-13. This involves the child allowance and one-off additional child allowance. Schedule 7, or Clause 7, has got amendments 28 and 29, and they are transitional in nature. Schedule 28 provides the definition for current year and preceding year, respectively. And the first means the year of assessment commencing on the 1st of April 2013. And then 2, allowances granted for current year. It says here that we can make reference to the new tax allowances. And then paragraph 3, for certain reasons, a person may apply for holding over of payment of provisional series tax. Now, because of the increase in the deduction ceiling of self-education expenses, this can be a ground for application for holding over of payment of provisional series tax. And it's also mentioned here that the commissioner has the discretion to grant the application. Para 3, applications for holding over of payment of provisional series tax. I'd like to know whether this is identical to previous transitional provisions. Well, whenever there is an amendment bill to the Inland Revenue Ordinance involving the concessionary measures in the budget, there will be this provision. So this is nothing new. Okay. We're now up to Schedule 29. One-off tax reductions for 2012-13. Again, the drafting is more or less identical to previous provisions. For this time, the concession is 75% of the amount of the tax, or $10,000, whichever is the lesser. For profits tax, the amount is just the same, 75% of the original amount, or $10,000, whichever is the lesser. Now, for a partnership, the tax payable by the whole partnership will be the basis for calculation. Para 3, tax under personal assessment. That is, a person may submit all his income from different sources for assessment. Again, the concession is 75% of the amount of the tax payable, or $10,000, whichever is the lesser. So, Chairman, I have briefly explained the provisions to members. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chiu. Members, do you need some time to go through the provisions? Meanwhile, does the legal advisor have any other points to make? No. Thank you. Ms. Quat? No? Allow me a minute, please.
I
have a general question. This is Inland Revenue Amendment Number 2, Bill 2013. This is based on the appropriation bill, which has not been enacted yet. No? No. Let me explain. Thank you. The Inland Revenue Amendment Number 2, Bill 2013 deals with revenue, income, whereas the appropriation bill being dealt with by the Council involves the expenses. So the purposes and also the scope are different. So this bill is about the revenue aspect of the budget. Thank you. I have no other suggestions or comments. So I think we've completed the clause-by-clause scrutiny. Yes. Any idea as to when the bill should receive its second reading or resumption of second reading debate? We hope to do so before the end of June. Members, we've got a legislative timetable. Please refer to the far left-hand corner. There are 2 dates. First is the 26th of June or the 19th of June. There are 2 dates. So there will be sittings on these 2 days for the bill to resume its second reading debate. While members are here, well, we hope to pass the bill before the end of June. But as you've referred to, the Islamic Bond Ordinance or the bill, well, is now being scrutinized clause by clause. Well, we refer to 2 schedules or reference numbers. Well, I would go for the 26th of June, hoping that the bill would get passed first. So you want the Islamic bond bill to be enacted first, or is it that you it doesn't matter? Well, it doesn't really matter. But if the bill is passed before this, then we don't need any CSA to change the numbering. But if we're ahead of the bill, then we just move some technical amendments to change the numbering. Well, I'm a member of the Bills Committee. It's hard to get enough quorum, to get a quorum for that bill. So it may take some time. You can check with Mr. Chen Can Lam, perhaps. That bill involves many more amendments and is technically more complicated. So if CSAs are needed for this bill, it can be helped. Perhaps you need to prepare some simple CSAs for this bill. Although there's something routine every year, we will issue invitations to stakeholders, relevant organizations, and all 18 district councils, and we'll also invite views on our website. I think we can give 2 weeks for interested parties to respond. Whether we need another meeting, well, that will depend on written submissions received. All right, we're just inviting written submissions. Any other questions, members? No? Thank you. I'll check the timetable first. First, we'll ascertain whether there's the need for another meeting. The size of the Bills Committee is not too big. It's easier for us to fix a date for another meeting if need be. All right. Thank you. The speaker's off mic. Well, for instance, if some deputations have very strong views and they have to make submissions to members of the Bills Committee, then we may have to convene one more meeting. So rest assured, Ms. Quat. All right. If there are no further questions, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you.